page 142, chapter 8, Healing of a Leper, Sick in His Inner Nature. When he descended from the mountain, there followed him a small crowd of people. And behold, a leper, or leprous one, who had become sick in his inner nature, or psyche, came and knelt before him and said, quote, "Master, if you will, you can make me clean from the evil inner nature of my thoughts." And Emmanuel stretched out his hand, touched him, and spoke long and deeply or suggestively to him. Then he said, quote, "I will do it and help you. Be cleansed from the evil of your inner nature, just as you want it, and have the certainty that you will be healed." End quote. And immediately the sick man was cleansed from his evil inner nature of his thoughts. Page 144, verse 4. And Emmanuel spoke to him, quote, "See to it that you tell no one. Instead, go and show to the priest that you are released from your evil inner nature of your thoughts and are clean again. You were healed through the power of your spirit or consciousness, and through the wisdom of knowledge, and through your power of thought or intellect, and your insight or rationality." End quote. The centurion at Capernaum, verse 6. When Emmanuel went to Capernaum, a centurion walked up to him with a request, saying, quote, "Master, my servant lies at home incapacitated with gout and has great torment in his thoughts to accept his suffering. Master, I have heard your new teaching, and I know the truth of your wisdom, which states that the human spirit or consciousness can perform miracles through the knowledge of the truth." End quote. And Emmanuel spoke to him, quote, "I will come and make him well, if he wants this, and does what I tell him." The centurion replied, "Master, I am not worthy of it, that you should enter under my roof, for you stand much higher than me in the knowledge. So only say the word, and my servant will be well. I am only a regular or simple human being, subject to authority, and under me are soldiers. And if I say to one, 'Go,' he goes, and to another, 'Come here,' and he comes, and to my servant, 'Do this,' he does it." But Emmanuel said, "See, I am also a regular human being like you. And if I am more knowing than you, I still do not stand above you or above others." But the centurion persisted or insisted on his trust and on that which he said. When Emmanuel heard this, he marveled and spoke to those who followed him, quote, "Truly I say to you, such trust I still have not found in the land of the God-believers, for trust in the truth is not sought after by them. But I say to you, many people will come from the east and the west, from the south and the north, and they will understand my teaching and will recognize in the knowledge the wisdom. But the God-believers will not understand it, and thus they will talk behind or defame me. At the same time, it will be so that they and their children will be expelled by other God-believers. So they will go out with their belief into the darkness, or remain unknowing, where there will be wailing and the chattering of teeth. The confused teachings of the God-believers will give rise to bloodshed and hatred and war in their land, and unto the ends of the world, or all around the world, across 2 times 1,000 and more years, while God zeal, or God fanaticism, will bring death and destruction over the land and over all the world, through the obsession or greed for might, and vice, or selfishness, and vanity, or imperiousness. Truly, I say, for all God-believers, turn away from your false and confused teachings, or irrational teachings, on tin gods and gods. Thus, this is also said to the authorities, or rulers, official bodies, and the scribes, and the studying scholars, or scientists, who are believers in a God, because they all will bring destruction to the masses of the human species, unto the ends of the world, or all around the world. The people of the God believers in this land, in their deep confusion, and in their self-love or selfishness, and self-conceit or megalomania, believe themselves to be a chosen human species. But so too will all God believers give themselves over to a hazy picture, or succumb to a delusion, imagination, into the distant time to come or future. However, it is by no means as they assume or believe, because all are more disloyal and unknowing than the unknowing themselves, who lack the secret of creation's laws. End quote. And Emmanuel spoke to the centurion, "Go in with me to your servant, so it will then happen to him as you have accepted." And they went into the centurion's servant, and Emmanuel gave him a herbal potion, which calmed him. But then he talked deeply or suggestively with him for a long time, and so he understood to accept his suffering. Thus, his torment was alleviated that same hour. Emmanuel in the house of Petrus, page 152, verse 21. And Emmanuel came to Petrus's house, and saw his allied mother or mother-in-law, who was bedridden and had a fever. He touched her hand and held it long. Then he gave her a special herbal potion, and soon the fever abated and left her. After some time she stood up and gave thanks to him, after which Emmanuel sat at the table and took food and drink to himself, as everything was presented to him, after which he announced the quote, teaching of the prophets. In the evening, however, they brought to him 2 possessed ones, drunken or intoxicated by toxic fruits, and befallen by restlessness, and he calmed the evil spirits, or delusional thoughts, through his word intervening, or hypnosis, in the spirit or consciousness. He also gave them a herbal potion. Then they spewed, or they threw up, vomited, and calmed down. Page 156, verse 24. And thus he made, through long and deep speaking, or suggestive influencing, and much interpretation or explanation, also a sick man, who had become sunken in painful anxiety on account of his illness, healthy from his thoughts tormenting him. So it came to pass that what was said through the prophet Isaiah would be fulfilled, who spoke, quote, "He has brought us the new teaching of knowledge, and the quote, teaching of the prophets, and has taken the human being's weakness upon himself, and he has healed the sick through the instilling or suggestive words of instruction, and with herbs." End quote. On the importance of discipleship. Verse 26. And when Emmanuel saw a crowd of people around him, he told them to row across to the other shore. A scribe walked up to him and said to him, "Master, I will follow you wherever you go." Emmanuel spoke to him, quote, "Foxes live in dens, and birds of the sky in nests. But for me, there is no fixed place where I can lay my head. To me, the duty, or mission, task, is given to teach love and knowledge, wisdom, and all-embracing peace for all peoples, that they may become knowing, wage no wars, and be truly connected to one another in love. Therefore, I am moving restlessly through the lands, and am announcing the quote teaching of the prophets, without the place of a fixed home. And another, one of his disciples, said to him, quote, Master, permit me to go and teach my father, who has turned away from the truth of the teaching, or from the teaching of the truth. Or permit me to go, that I may say goodbye to my father, who has turned away from the teaching of the truth, so I may leave him for the sake of the teaching, because I do not grasp after or learn my father's wrong belief, and want to live. But Emmanuel said to him, Go and do according to your will, but consider your father's belief, from which he must release or free himself through the truth and the quote teaching of the prophets. Thus, continue to follow me in the teaching and to grasp or learn, so that if it should be in accordance with your father's will, you may enlighten him in the truth of the quote teaching of the prophets. Page 160. The calming of two possessed persons, or persons possessed by self-created delusional entities. Verse 32. And he arrived at the other shore, in the region of the Gadarenes. There, two possessed persons, or persons possessed by self-created delusional entities, ran up to him. They came out of the tomb caves, where they were cast out, and they were sometimes very dangerous, so no one walked on this road anymore. Page 164, verse 33. And behold, they cried out and shouted, We have heard of you. What do you want of us, you son of Gabriel, the celestial son? Have you come to torment us before it is even time that the evil spirits move our spirit or consciousness into confusion again? But Emmanuel spoke deeply, or suggestively to them. So he spoke also with his deep words, or hypnotically, to the spirits or consciousness of the possessed persons, or persons possessed by self-created delusions. And they soon became of another sense and came to rest. And so the two possessed persons, or persons befallen by self-created delusions, asked him, Master, if you intend to drive the evil entities out of us, then let them go into the herd of swine grazing just over there. And he spoke very long, urgently and deeply, or suggestively, with them, and spoke suggestively and interveningly, or through hypnosis, to their spirits or consciousness. And then he said, So go there then, and cry out very loudly to the swine. Then the two persons befallen by self-created delusional entities went there, and cried out loudly and angrily to these three swine. And behold, the small herd got frightened very much, and rushed down to the waters, and drowned therein. But the possessed persons, or persons possessed by self-created delusions, changed their behavior, and they became calm and peaceful, and were henceforth no longer a danger to those passing along this road, on this road. And the female swineherd fled, and went into the town and told everything, including what had happened to the possessed, or persons possessed by self-created delusions. And behold, a crowd of people came out of the town and approached Emmanuel, and when they saw him, they asked him to leave their area, for they thought he was in league with evil spirits, and with the superior of evil, or the devil.